this video, we're going to look at implementing roles and permissions in a Laravel Jetstream application, and we're also using Inertia.js. So we're going to do this by using the Spatie package, this one here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create two users, an admin user and a standard user. We're going to give them the roles of admin and standard, and we're going to apply the permissions to read articles, write articles, edit articles and delete articles to the admin user or the admin role, and we're just going to apply the permission to read articles to the standard role. So let's have a quick look at how we're going to do that. So go to the Spatie website and we go to the installation in Laravel. I'm just going to copy this composer command here, and I'm going to run that in the terminal. So this is our Laravel Jetstream application here. While that's loading, let's have a look at what we need to do next. So we need to publish the migration and config file. So we'll copy this command as well. Just wait for that to finish. Okay, that's finished. Now we're going to publish those files. Okay, that's done. Let's have a look what we need to do next. Okay, I'm going to run the migration. Okay, let's have a quick look at our database. So this was before the migration. So let's have a look, let's refresh that, and we should see some new tables that are going to be related to roles and permissions. Yeah, so we've got all these tables here. So that's worked. So let's go back to the Spatie document, let's have a look. We need to add something to our user model. Okay, so I need to add this to the user model. We can actually delete that because we've got it up here already. Add that. Press save, and we're pretty good to go now. So what we're going to do is use this code here to create our roles and permissions, and then we're going to use this down here to assign the permissions to the roles we've created. So if you watched the last video, we looked at seeding our database with users. So we're going to add to this user seeder and give the users a role when they're created. So if we have a quick look at that seeder, so we had an array with our users in, and then we had a for each loop that just looped over this array and created the user each time. So what we're going to do here, we're just going to add role, and we're going to call our role for admin, and our role for this user, standard. Doing this in a bit of a backwards order, actually. Tell you what, let's actually create the roles and permissions first, because that isn't what I'm doing here. I'm looking at assigning them to the users before I'm actually creating them. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually ignore that. That was very confusing, but we're going to create a new seeder to actually create these roles and permissions. Seeder. Running the command php artisan make seeder. We're going to call it roles seeder. We'll see that's now appeared here. Okay, so what we're actually going to do is create these roles and permissions in this new seeder file. So we're going to copy that, put it at the top, and then we're going to just copy those, and we're going to change these. Okay, so we're going to create two roles. So we're going to call this one role admin. I'm going to give it the name admin. Copy that and paste it, and then we're going to call this one role standard. I'm going to give it the name standard. And then we're going to create 4 permissions. So permission read. So this is going to be to read articles. Just copy that. Paste, paste, paste. We're going to have edits. Edit articles. Write. I'm doing this in a really weird order. And delete. We're going to give that the name delete articles. Okay, so when this seeder runs, it's going to create the role admin, create the role standard, and then create these 4 permissions. But then we need to actually assign the permissions to the roles. So let's have a look how we do that. So we're going to do the admin first, and we're going to assign all of those roles to admin. So if we see here, multiple permissions can be synced to a role using one of these methods. So we're going to use this one here. Now we need to put these permissions into an array. So let's call our array permissions admin. Create that array here. I'm just going to put these into the array. Okay, and then we're going to say role admin, sync permissions, permissions admin. Okay, and now we want to sync, well, we want to assign just the permission read to the standard role. So let's see how we do just one. It's just like that. So this is just to give one permission, but we could use the same method here and just create an array with the one permission in it, but we'll use this one just to see what it's all about. So role standard, give permission to permission read. Okay, so that is all we need for that. So again, if you saw the last video, you would see about seeding. We added our user seeder to this database seeder file here. So we're going to do the same with our role seeder. So this just allows us to run our seeders, with one command. So let's just change that to roles. Put it down here. Now, in our example, it's quite important that you put role seeder above user seeder, and that's because our users seeder, which we're going to have a look at in a second, is going to rely on the roles that we create in the role seeder. So we need the roles to be made before we run our user seeder. So let's go back to the user seeder. So before, I really confusingly started changing this file, but now it should hopefully make sense. So we added role admin and role standard, and now we're going to change this for each loop, which loops over each user, and each time we're going to assign the role that is associated with that user in the array to the user. So what we're going to do firstly is create a variable. So store this created user in a variable. Let's call it created user. And then we're going to look at how we actually assign a user a role. Okay, here we go. So I went on to using permissions via roles down here. So it's quite simple, we just copy that. So actually, if you look here, we're just going to do one role per user, but you can actually assign them multiple roles. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but you can do it if you want. And then we're just going to say user role. Right, so that's looking pretty good, I think. So what we're going to do now is run the seeders and see what happens. So I'm just going to refresh the whole database and do this and run the seeders at the same time. So PHP artisan migrate fresh. Can you put seed like that as well? It will seed it as well. Yes, it did. Okay, perfect. Let's have a quick look at the database, see what's happened there. So it should have created 2 users, one called admin, one called John, and also created the roles admin and standard, and then assigned those roles to the users. So let's have a quick look at this roles table here. So we can see, yeah, admin, standard. Just take a look at the ID, so ID 1 and 2, and then see that's how they are assigned to the users. So let's have a look. Model has roles, so the model will be the user when it loads. Yeah, so this is the first user that was created, which was admin, and this is John, and we can see the role ID corresponds to the role they've been given. So that's all looking pretty good. Feel free to look through all these tables in more detail. So we've now got our users with the roles. I'm just going to refresh this because our database has been migrated. We'll log in as the admin and see what we can see. Admin. So we can see all of these buttons because we haven't actually applied any logic to hide them or show them. So let's have a look at how we're going to do that. So get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Let's have a look. Where are we? Okay. So this is the file that's showing those buttons. Now I just want to quickly show you something. If we output page props, Jetstream displays these props by default. Now what we want to do is we want to basically, you see this user here, gives you all this information about the user. We want to just append some information about the roles and permissions to this object here. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go to a file called handle inertia requests middleware. Let's have a look. Middleware, okay, handle inertia requests. And in here, we'll see this array merge. And we're just going to go user, so that we're talking about this. Roles. We're going to say request user. So that's basically saying if the user is authenticated. So if we're logged in, we are going to append the, use my brain here, user, I think we just say roles. So this is to do with this is basically a relationship that the Spatie package has given the user. So roles, if they're not, we're just going to return an empty array. Okay, let's just see if that's worked. So let's just refresh the page. Roles, yeah, okay. So we can now see we've got the user object here. We've also got the roles. So that's just showing you the database row for that role that has been assigned to this user. So if we had more than one role, so it's just an array, sorry, we'd have all the roles there. So I'm all over the place there. Right, now that is probably useful for some people, but I personally just want to have the names of the role in that array. So what we're going to do is we're just going to say pluck name. So let's have a look, and that should now just have the name admin. Yeah, perfect. So we're going to do the exact same thing for permissions. because permissions are actually a bit more useful. We're going to say, you know what, I think it's actually different. Let's see what it says. Okay, I'm going to try that. Let's see what happens. No, I didn't like that. Hang on. Yeah, okay. So basically I just left off the brackets. So now we can see we've got the permissions here. So that's all well and good, but how are we going to apply that to these buttons here? It's really simple. We're just essentially going to say, we're going to put an if on each of these divs that are surrounding the buttons. We're just going to say if specific permission that applies to this is in this array, then we can show it, and if it's not, it won't show. So we'll say page user permissions just accessing this array here, and then we'll just say includes read article that will now show if read article is in that array. So we'll do the exact same thing down here. We'll say write. Same down here. We'll say edit and delete. Did that save? Oh, hopefully these should all still be showing. No. That means I've done something wrong. What have I done? Wow, yeah. It's articles, not article. Okay, so we'll just change all those. Give that save. Hopefully now they should be showing. Yeah, okay, right, perfect. So that's because we're admin and we've got all of these permissions. So let's try signing in as the standard user. We should only see read articles. Perfect. Read article is only showing. Now, one last thing I'm going to show you. I know this video is dragging on a bit. Now, we've obviously assigned these users roles in our seeder, but what if you want to assign roles to users that just sign up normally? That's really simple. We just need to look at where our users are created. So this create new user file here, actions 45 create new user. And we're just going to use the same bit of code that we used in our seeder to assign the role that we want to the new users. So let's have a little look. Database seeders, user seeder. So it's this line here. Copy that, paste it. Now at the moment, when a user is created, it returns this newly created user, but we're actually going to, instead of doing that, store it to a variable. And now this variable contains a new user, and then we assign it whatever role we put in here. So we're just going to assign the role standard to users that are created in this way, and then we're just going to return the user here. So now, when new users are created through the sign-up form, they'll be assigned the role standard. So that's it. I know that dragged on a bit. Sorry about that. But thank you for watching.